Hey, Sunset Teens and everyone joining us. Hope you're still hanging in there and haven't gone too stir crazy yet staying at home. If you're in desperate need to see some smiling faces and have a little bit of fun, join us tonight for our virtual teen time. We will, as always, be starting at 6:30. The meeting ID and passcode have been sent out through Remind and Facebook, so we hope to see everyone there. Well, it's another Sunday, but it's not just any Sunday. It's Easter Sunday. So when you think about Easter, what do you think about? What comes to mind? Probably Easter Bunny, Easter baskets, candy, family get togethers, Easter eggs, pastel colors, and all those things are good. But when you think about the true meaning of Easter, those things can seem a little empty. And when it comes to the true meaning of Easter, empty is a good thing. Now, normally the concept of something being empty, it's not usually a good thing, okay? Empty gift cards, empty coffee cup, empty wallet. So empty equals no good, right? You see, everybody and their mama gets together for Easter to celebrate a holiday that to a lot of people is empty. But I'm here to tell you today that empty is a good thing. So, point one, take home with you. Empty is a good thing. When we look at Easter in the proper light and we understand what really happened and what was going on and why we celebrate Easter, empty is a good thing. When Jesus was murdered and nailed to a cross, they buried him in a tomb, basically a cave, and rolled a huge heavy stone in front of the tomb. And then 3 days later, something unbelievable happened. The tomb was empty. Luke 24, 1 through 8 says this. But very early on Sunday morning, the women went to the tomb, taking the spices they'd prepared. They found that the stone had been rolled away from the entrance, so they went in, but they didn't find the body of the Lord Jesus. As they stood there puzzled, two men suddenly appeared to them, clothed in dazzling robes. The women were terrified and bowed with their faces to the ground, and then the men asked, "Why are you looking among the dead for someone who's alive? He isn't here. He's risen from the dead. Remember what he told you back in Galilee, that the Son of Man must be betrayed into the hands of sinful men and be crucified, and that he would rise again on the third day." Then they remembered that he had said this. Point number two, empty is proof. Now let's back up a minute. Let's look earlier during Jesus' ministry when he said he had to go through this to his disciples. In Mark 8:31 said this, "Then Jesus began to tell them that the Son of Man must suffer many terrible things and be rejected by the elders and the leading priests and the teachers of religious law. He would be killed, but 3 days later he would rise from the dead." Proof Jesus is who he says he is. Have you ever heard someone make a bunch of claims, couldn't back it up? Jesus didn't do that. We just read in Mark that Jesus said he would die and rise again after 3 days, and he backed it up. Now, I can follow somebody who makes a claim as huge as this and then backs it up. Point three, empty is powerful. Jesus has power over death because Jesus died and rose again because Jesus, is who he says he is. Jesus has power of sin's greatest weapon, death. You know, for something to have life, something else has to die. So, I'll give you an example. Did anyone eat fruit today? Well, in order for you to eat fruit, it had to be disconnected from its tree, its life source. It had to die to give you life. Jesus is the one who says, "I can give you life. I can make it so that you will never really die. That even after life on earth is done, you'll live with me forever. Because that is how much I love you." The empty tomb shows us that Jesus has power over death. He looked at death straight in the eyes. He took death's best sting and overcame it. It's amazing. Point 4, empty is permanent. You know, people every year visit Jerusalem, walk down some of the same roads that Jesus may have walked down. And one of the places people love to visit is the place where historians believe Jesus was buried. And guess what? Till this day, the tomb is still empty. Romans 6:9 says this: "We are sure of this because Christ was raised from the dead, and he will never die again. Death no longer has any power over him." Jesus wasn't in the tomb 3 days after he died. He isn't in the tomb today, and he never will be. Jesus is God and is alive forever. His body wasn't stolen. It wasn't in the wrong tomb. It wasn't some magic trick. So when we look at the true meaning of Easter and everything Jesus did for us on the cross, empty is a good thing. Empty means Jesus is who he says he is. Empty means Jesus has power over death, and empty is permanent. Jesus is permanently alive, and death will never overcome him again. When we decide to follow him, instead of following our own selfish desires, we too can begin to really, really live. As always, if it's your first time visiting the Sunset Youth Group YouTube page, or even if it's not, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and leave a comment down below. New content comes out on Sundays and Wednesdays.